Welcome to this week's edition of Beyond Wall Street, the show that's committed to helping take the mystery out of Wall Street and helping it make sense for you on your street. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm here today with Kenny Porter. He is the president of Kenneth Porter and Company. Kenny, it's always a joy to be with you.
Hey,
How
Kristen,
are you this
great
week?
to see you again.
Great to see you.
Thanks for always doing a great job of hosting the show. I really appreciate you.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's an honor to be with you and getting to serve the wonderful community of Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach, such a great area.
Yep.
I have so many fond memories of growing up and spending summers at Oceana when my dad was doing his active duty, and it's just always a treat to be back here.
There you go,
with
military brat, right? So you
Yes.
fall right into the category of most people in Hampton Roads.
Absolutely, can totally identify. And it definitely is a family affair. So a special shout out not only to those who serve, but your families as well.
That's
And we
right.
appreciate your sacrifice.
To all the Marines out there, Semper Fi.
There we go.
A little
Awesome.
impartial to the Marines.
Yes, just a little, right? Rightly so.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so curious, Kenny. I know you always have so much going on, but one of the things folks at home might not know is about your book. So I was wondering if you could just share a little bit about what the title is and how folks can grab a copy of it.
Yes, I wrote this book in 2012, and it came off the back of, I had an investment advisory firm that I'd run for a number of years, and I sold it in 2008.
Oh, wow. What a year to sell.
Yeah, so the negotiations, 2007, 2008, we got it done. And then I took a 3-year hiatus, and I spent some time during that period of writing a book called The Billionaire Within. And The Billionaire Within, to me, was really examining those inner perspective secrets of wealth. And after having the opportunity to interview clients over the last 20 years, I took a lot of that perspective from other people and shared with my readers these risks through retirement that you have to consider to really have a chance at having exceptional wealth.
Right.
And it starts with a mindset. It starts with a money philosophy, and that's why I call it the billionaire mindset. And if you look at what billionaires are doing, it can be a good example of what maybe we can learn from what these successful people have done in their lives to mitigate and minimize the eroding factors of wealth.
I love that you did that research, and no doubt that probably helped formulate a lot of what you do for clients, specifically in the area of tax planning.
That's right. So in tax planning, I think most people think of tax as tax deferral planning. So they're excited about the opportunity to save money, and that money that they're saving, they don't have to pay any income tax on it currently.
Right.
That feels really good, and I agree with that. It does feel good to not have to pay more tax than your fair share.
Because that's what so many people are focused on. How do I lower my tax liability today?
That's right. And today can lull you into a false security of what tax is going to be tomorrow. I like to say that tax deferral is a sexy word for tax postponement. So when I just change that word, deferral, to postpone, well, what am I postponing to? And most of us have this position and this belief system. And by the way, beliefs drive behavior. Behavior drives the relationship we have with that behavior, and then relationships drive results. Most of us are just looking for the best results we can get.
Right.
And we'll go back to our belief system to verify whether or not it's true. But what happens is that the behavior that we exhibit doesn't always follow our belief system. Let me give you an example of that. Let's say a person believes that when they retire, they're going to retire to a lower tax bracket.
I think a lot of people think that, right?
That's
kind of
right.
what
And
we've
that's
been
kind of
told.
what's been told in
Right.
mass media and mass financial information, is that for the most part, everybody's going to retire to a lower tax bracket. Well, when you start doing the math and the math calculations, and you even take today's current rates, the lowest federal rate in our country is 10% right now. The highest is 37%.
Right.
And by the way, that's subject to change. December 31st of 2025, there's a sunset provision that comes back, and all of those tax breaks that we got up until 2017 go away, from estate tax exemption to income tax that we pay. And so, these people have this position that they're going to be in a lower bracket. But as I was saying, when you go look at it mathematically, if you've done a good job of saving, if you have significant years of contributions to Social Security, 35 of those years, if you have the fortunate benefit in Hampton Roads, many people in this area have the opportunity to have a pension plan through the federal government still. So if you have Social Security, a pension and you're contributing to a retirement account on a pre-tax basis, there's a high probability that when you go to start taking distributions, that you're going to be in the same, at best, or higher bracket than when you started making those contributions.
Right.
And I talk with military folks a lot about when they entered the Navy or when they entered the Marine Corps. And when they entered, they were at the lowest rank possible, whether they were an ensign or whether they were a seaman. They started at an E1 or an O1.
Right.
And an O1 and E1 doesn't make as much money as an E9 or an admiral. So when you think about that, as you're progressing through your military career, you're also progressing through this increased income benefit.
Yes.
And that means that you're going to defer even more tax on higher amounts.
Tax postponement.
Tax
right?
postponement. Now when you look at going up that mountain of accumulation, putting the money in, now we got to think about the distribution phase.
Right.
That's coming down the mountain. And coming down that mountain has a lot of risk as well. And those risks associated with income planning, usually at the top of that list is income tax. And when we start looking at these income tax plans, we find that most people, if they continue to defer into their 70s, the likelihood is that they're going to pay more income tax. And let me share an example with you personally. So my wife's grandmother started taking required minimum distributions in her 70s. Now, Grandma passed away at 96 years young.
Wow.
Now, she had a pension. Her husband had a pension who passed away in his 70s. One had CSRS, Civil Service Retirement System. The other had Social Security. So she was able to get half of his pension, some Social Security benefits, and her pension. Now, over the years in the 1970s through the 1990s, they were saving in this thing called an IRA, an individual retirement account.
Right.
Well, between Grandma Rachel and Grandpa Bob, they had saved over $500,000. And what's interesting about that, excuse me, is that when this money was now time to distribute, in the early years, in her 70s, Grandma Rachel was distributing about $19,000 a year for required minimum distributions,
Right.
on top of all of her income.
The amount that the government required her to take.
That's right.
Right.
By the time she got to 96, her last distribution under that calculation of $500,000 was a factor of 8.1, which means that her distribution was over $63,000 just for that 1 year.
Wow. So from 19,000, the difference up to 63,000 for the
And
year.
it increases every year because you're a year closer to your actuarial mortality.
Right.
And what we want to do is work through distribution plans to not let that happen, to actually try to minimize and mitigate that higher distribution by doing some tax planning on the front side of your retirement distribution phase.
Absolutely. Well, I know that's something that you're so passionate about, is helping folks engage in the strategic tax planning process. So for someone who's watching, who is realizing, wow, maybe their advisors never even talked to you about some of these things, what do you want to say to that person?
Yeah, I would say it's time to get a second opinion. And in that second opinion, we want to help you with what we call a tax map, the KP and Code tax map. This tax map we will offer to you complimentary, and it will help you navigate through your retirement distribution phase, understanding the tax consequence. So if you'd like to take us up on that tax map offer, just reach out to us at 844-575-8071, and my team is standing by to help take your information and get you on my schedule, and we'll give you that complimentary tax report and have a conversation to see how we can help you.
Wonderful. Kenny, thank you so much. And to
Yeah.
our viewers at home, again, that number to call is on the bottom of your screen, 844-575-8071. You're also welcome to take out your smartphone and simply scan that QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few simple questions, and then a member of Kenny's team will reach out to you to schedule your time to come in and get your complimentary tax map. We have so much more to cover. When we come back from this short commercial break, we're going to be talking about how do you know which accounts you should be withdrawing income from first in retirement as it relates to the tax implications. Stay with us. We'll see you right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Well, welcome back to Beyond Wall Street. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with Kenny Porter, president of Kenneth Porter and Company. And before the break, Kenny, we've been talking today about a lot of the tax implications that folks need to take into consideration as it results to income planning in retirement. And the reality is a lot of folks are entering retirement with three types of accounts. You have your tax-deferred accounts, your taxable accounts, and your tax-free accounts. So my question for you is, how does someone go about deciding which one of these accounts they should be withdrawing income from first as part of their income planning process for retirement?
Yeah, great question and great thoughts. The easy answer is one that seems evasive. It depends.
It depends. And that's true for so many financial questions, let's be honest, right? Because what does it depend on?
So it depends on the analysis of their timing and the sequence of returns that come into play. It has to do with their wishes and desires, not only for the individual and their spouse, but also their legacy.
Right.
So there's about a 30-year period that we need to examine in the retirement distribution phase. And so there's this longevity risk that comes into play as well.
Right.
So the timing and sequence of which accounts to take and when to take them, a lot depends on your need for income in the distribution phase. And that need for income after your guaranteed payments, like Social Security or like a pension, would be, if we believe that income taxes are going up in the future, one of the first places to examine in distributions would be a qualified plan. Qualified plan being an IRA or 401k.
Right, all those tax deferred or tax postponed.
Tax
as
postponement
you like to say,
accounts,
right? Yes.
And something to remember is that if you have a qualified plan and you still have your money inside, say, a 401k, if you start taking distributions from a 401k, the government actually says they're not going to allow you to set your own effective rate. They're going to say they want to withhold 20%. That's the minimum that from a 401k you can withhold. So, and many times if you start taking distributions from a 401k, you want to make sure that you actually convert that to an IRA. When you make that conversion, there's no tax consequence if you do it in a qualified manner.
Right.
So going from 401k to IRA, you don't touch it.
The IRA rollover,
Custodian
right?
to custodian, the IRA rollover, then there's no tax consequence for that. But now when it's inside an IRA, the rules change a little bit, and you have more flexibility in how you can take a distribution from that account. So it's not that we are negative on TSP or we're negative on 401ks and keeping it there, but understand the consequence of keeping it from a tax point of view in those types of plans. And so if, again, we have this belief that income taxes are going up in our future, and we as a firm wholeheartedly believe that there's nowhere for income taxes to go but up. You just look at our government spending, look at our government debt that is on the responsible shoulders of every tax-paying citizen. We're at over $31 trillion in debt in our country. And counting.
I'm sure it went up since the show started.
It's been going up, and it's going to continue to go up. And Congress is doing very little to change that. So don't want to get on that soapbox and stay on it. That's a whole nother show.
For sure, yes.
But the idea here is to create a strategy around how you take distributions. So IRAs, typically we suggest taking those first. But the amount that you should take depends on the balance. And it also depends on how it's invested. So a lot of times we'll take strategies where we will split it up into multiple pots. And we will identify what's going to be spent first, what's going to be spent second, what's going to be spent third. And some of the strategies that we can use is like Roth conversion strategies.
This is a term I'm hearing about a lot, so I would love
Yeah.
to have you unpack this a little bit for people at home to really understand what is a Roth conversion and why it might be in their best interest to enact one.
Yeah, again, if you've got 30 years before your legacy ends, it may make a lot of sense to actually take a portion of that money each year. And even though you may not be able to contribute to a Roth, there's this still kind of a trick to the code still where you can do a backdoor Roth, where we can go to a non-deductible IRA and then to a Roth conversion, pay the tax in a known bracket versus postponing it
Right.
to an unknown
even
bracket.
later when we don't even know how much we're going to have
That's
to
right.
pay. Right.
And so when you ask individuals in your personal opinion, do you believe taxes are going up, down, or staying the same in the future? Almost 100% of the people that I survey, and I ask that question, they say we believe income taxes are going up. So earlier in the segment, we talked about a belief system. So what's interesting is if your belief system is you believe that income taxes are going up, well, how are you behaving? Does your behavior exhibit the belief? And if it doesn't, then that means there's an area or room for change in your income distribution strategy. And sometimes change can be painful. No one likes to pay tax. But if you've got it in a pre-tax account, it's inevitable. You're either going to pay it now or you're going to pay it later. And if I wait till later, there's a great potential that you're going to pay more. So the idea is to start with pre-tax accounts first for most people.
Right. For most people, that is going to be the correct way to start.
Right. Then taxable accounts, like what we refer to as non-qualified accounts. And then save the best for last. That's your tax-free accounts.
Right.
That can be Roth IRAs. It can also be something that's missed a lot in planning is the internal buildup of permanent life insurance. So using that financial product as an overall legacy strategy, it can create a significant permission slip that if you use it appropriately, it can allow you to spend both principal and interest from other assets while this tax-free component is growing alongside of your Roths, getting powerful compound interest, but in the best place possible, tax-free accounts.
Right. Tax-free. That just sounds so good.
Yeah, doesn't it?
I think everybody would enjoy some of that.
Absolutely.
For sure. Well, Kenny, I know that you're offering your complimentary tax map. So before we go to commercial break, do you mind just unpacking a little bit more what it involves and what folks are going to get when they come in and meet with you?
Yeah, in order to get our complimentary tax map, what we need from you is typically just 2 years of tax returns. We want to be examine a previous year and your current year. And then we want to look at your investment statements. We want to see where the assets are held and how the assets are qualified. Is it a non-qualified account? Is it a qualified account? And then we can take that data and we can input this information to our tax mapping software. And that tax mapping software we refer to as the KP & Co tax map. And it gives us the opportunity to take an analysis of your present position, where you're at today, what your tax consequences are today. And then we can start doing some simulation out into the future to see if taxes stay the same, if our marginal rates stay the same, where are you going to be? If taxes go up, where are we going to be? And then that will set the stage for us to be able to give you this complimentary tax report for you to actually plan either with our firm or with your current advisor. We don't care either way. We want to provide it as a value-added service. So if you'd like to take us up on that, you can reach out to us at 844-575-8071. And my team is standing by to get this information from you, to get you on my calendar, and for you to be able to have this complimentary review and get your free tax report or your complimentary tax report without any obligation.
Wonderful. Kenny, thank you so much. And to our viewers at home, again, that number to call to get your complimentary tax map from Kenny and his team, it's right there on the bottom of your screen. Just call 844-575-8071, or you're welcome to scan that QR code with your smartphone, and that will take you to a landing page and allow you to set up your appointment to come in and meet with Kenny and his team that way as well. When we come back, we're going to be talking about what are some of the tax implications if you're planning to leave behind some money to your loved ones in the form of IRAs, you name it. You're not going to want to miss this because there's some important information that you need to be aware of as it relates to some recent law changes. So stay with us. We'll see you right after this.
Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Ben. Hey, birthday party for Carol and 5. Happy birthday to you.
Good morning, Ben. Happy Monday.
Daryl's birthday, be there every square. Happy birthday to you. As you can see from our quarterly report on slide number 62, we're trending in the right direction. All signs point to a very positive outlook for the next several years. If you peel back the onion
Ben, do you have anything to add?
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to Beyond Wall Street. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Kenny Porter, president of Kenneth Porter and Company. Kenny, we've been talking so much today about just different strategies that folks need to be aware of when it comes to income distribution, how to take income and generate income for themselves in retirement, which accounts to withdraw from first. But recently, some new laws were passed with the Secure 2.0 Act, and one of the biggest changes pertains, I should say, to inherited IRAs, so money that folks want to leave behind to their loved ones. So can you unpack that a little bit of what it is that people need to be aware of, this big change that occurred?
Yeah. So under Secure Act 2.0, what's happened here is that the federal government has compressed the time in which your heirs have to take money out of those qualified plans. That compression is now down to 10 years. So versus it being in the old rules over your mortality.
Right, so it used to be they could take it out over their whole lifetime, right?
And the
now,
idea was, create stretch IRAs and to extend the tax consequence.
Right.
The federal government got smart. And they said, well, we're actually going to change the rule on you. And they can do that without any permission from the citizens. They can change those rules because they're 100% under government control. And so this Secure Act 2.0 said, okay, if you inherit an IRA 401k, they're going to compress it to 10 years. So think about it this way, for every $100,000 you leave behind, $10,000 a year before any interest earnings has to be distributed from that account to, over a 10-year period.
Right.
And so that can be devastating to a person's current tax rate who's still in their accumulation phase, still in their working years. But they've got to add that as ordinary income on top of their wages, which can vault them into a much higher bracket, vault them into a much higher effective tax rate, which is what we pay attention to in our planning.
And that's something that's so tragic to me, because a lot of times folks are wanting to do the right thing and maybe they think they're leaving a gift for their loved ones, right? I'm going to pass money to my kids, for example. But then what that does is it creates a tax bomb for the child, because to your point, now they're in a higher tax bracket. Rather than a gift, it's almost a burden. I hate to say it that way, but that's literally what can happen.
Yeah, we've taken clients before that didn't really have any need for the use of their income. They had plenty of income from other assets. And so we created strategies to actually do what's called a spend down. And we spend it down from an IRA, trying to keep them in that 12 to 24% tax rate, which is kind of the sweet spot.
Right.
And so we will create a spend down strategy and then move that money to Roth conversions, Roth IRAs, or move that money to max funded permanent life insurance contracts that are compressed typically on a 10-year schedule. And if you use those types of investment vehicles and tax strategy components of those investment vehicles, you can leave behind a significant asset of tax-free wealth versus leaving behind a taxable asset with an unknown tax consequence that's likely going to be higher if you don't plan it out right.
Right. Well, and I know there's another strategy you've employed as well, QCDs, another acronym that's important to know, right? Qualified Charitable Distributions. And I think you had shared with me previously about a client you recently helped engage in that strategy. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so here's an example of a person that they were a pastor in Hampton Roads, and they pastored a big denominational branch of their denomination, I should say. And when they retired, they wanted to still be in ministry. And so what they ended up doing was starting their own 501c3, starting their own church. And the client basically had a significant IRA that they were going to have to start taking some required minimum distributions on. And they were charitable to their own church. And so what they were able to do was take one segment of their IRA and make a qualified charitable donation to their church and avoid any income taxes.
Wow.
And then put it into the church funds that allowed the church to operate and to give back to the community in the most efficient manner possible, and have no tax consequence in doing so.
That's just a win-win for everyone
It was a win,
right?
yeah. They got the benefits of basically sowing into their own church and having those resources there to fund and run their church as appropriate and led by their board. But they also got the benefit of never having to pay income tax on that IRA. So if you have a charitable intent, by the time you reach your RMD phase, there's the QCD strategy that can be used that can minimize or mitigate income tax on those types of retirement plans.
One of the things I always love about our times together, Kenny, is you are just a wealth of knowledge and strategically helping folks figure out, okay, what strategy can they employ? What would be most efficient for them to create greater tax efficiency throughout their full financial plan? And so I know folks watching are wanting to grab hold of this, so what do they need to do? Yeah,
if you would like to have a conversation with us today, we would love to give you a complimentary tax map. And if you would like to take us up on that, just reach out to us at 844-575-8071, and my team is standing by to get you on my schedule, and we'll get that complimentary tax report into your hands and create an income distribution strategy for your family.
Wonderful. Kenny, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, thank you so much for watching. We love you, Virginia Beach. We'll see you next time.